Hello, hello. How are you? I hope you're well. I do. Yes. What's up? I've got a whole lot of things happening. I've got a meeting after my reading today, so I will try not to chat too much at the beginning and the end and during the reading because I really need to actually be in the meeting. It's an online meeting, thankfully. I need to be in the meeting at 4 o'clock New Zealand time, which is an hour from now. And usually I read for about an hour and a quarter to an hour and a half. So we'll see how we go. And apart from introducing myself, which I'm about to do, we shall just get on with reading. That will be a new thing for us, won't it? Very new. Unusual. Very unusual. So if you're new here, hi, I'm Jev. I read old-fashioned children's books because, well, why not? Stories at different time periods have been written with different styles, and the styles often reflect the time period that they come from. And so a great way to challenge our imagination and extend our sense of understanding and from that our sense of empathy for others is to actually get our imagination engaged with things that are from other time periods and locations, because it helps us to understand things a lot more broadly. So it's got a reason as any to read them. Most of our stories are nothing heavy. They're all light entertainment. Often there's the mischievous children involved, even if they're not intending to be mischievous, but that's just the way they are. Anyway, so I'm going to get on with reading. And we are currently reading the book which is called The Phoenix and the Carpet by E. Nesbit. And it was published in 1904, I think. And it's the second of a trilogy. The first one is called Five Children and It. The It in the title is the Samiad or Sand Fairy. This one is the Phoenix and the Carpet, and apparently the Phoenix knows the Samiad and has actually, in one of the previous chapters, has actually gone off and seen the Samiad to ask for some wish-style help with something. Sorry, itchy eyelid. And that, I don't think otherwise we're actually going to have a visit with the Samiad in this book, but I do think that the Samiad's influence will be part of the story, just in small ways along the way. And the third book is called The Amulet. Ooh. We'll get to that one day, but we won't read it straight after this book. We will actually read something else before we get to that one, just because otherwise it gets a little bit same and boring when it doesn't need to be boring. So there you go. We're up to chapter 8, I think. Just checking. Yes, chapter 8. And this chapter is called The Cats, the Cowl, and the Burglar. At the end of chapter 7, we had mews from Persia. They were Persian cats, and they were mewing, and there was a room full of them. Oh dear. So we shall carry on with chapter 8 and see if that's resolved. The issue of what to do with all these cats. And very obviously, mother and father were away at the time. Actually, so were the servants, the cook and the housekeeper, or maid, or whatever it was. I don't know what her role is. Yes, which is possibly a big part of why such things had been happening. Anyway, we will carry on and read this. The Phoenix and the Carpet by E. Nesbit, Chapter 8, The Cats, the Cowl, and the Burglar. We'll see. The nursery was full of Persian cats and muskrats that had been brought there by the wishing carpet. The wishing carpet had brought rats for the cats to eat because they were hungry, but unfortunately the cats don't want to because they are musk rats. So they have particular smell to them, which is the basis of the smell musk that's used in so many things. Anyway, we'll carry on. The cats were mewing and the muskrats were squeaking so that you could hardly hear yourself speak. In the kitchen were the 4 children, 1 candle, a concealed phoenix, and a very visible policeman. Now then, look here, said the policeman very loudly, and he pointed his lantern at each child in turn. What's the meaning of this here yelling and caterwauling? I tell you, you've got a cat here, and someone's ill-treating of it. What do you mean by it, eh? Oops, sorry, my iPad just dropping down. It was 5-1 counting the phoenix, but the policeman, who was 1, was of unusually fine size, and the 5, including the phoenix, were small, because they were children. The mews and the squeaks grew softer, and in the comparative silence, Cyril said, "It's true, there are a few cats here, but we've not hurt them. It's quite the opposite, we've just fed them." "Doesn't sound like it," said the policeman grimly. "I dare say they're not real cats," said Jane madly. "Perhaps they're only dream cats." "I'll dream cat you, m'lady," was the brief response of the force. "If you understood anything except people who do murders and stealings and naughty things like that, I'd tell you all about it," said Robert. "But I'm certain you don't. You're not meant to shove your oar into people's private cat keepings. You're only supposed to interfere when people shout murder and stop thief in the street. So there." The policeman assured them that he should see about that, and at this point the phoenix, who had been making itself small on the pot shelf under the dresser, among the saucepan lids and the fish kettle, that means the dish, the pot type thing that's used for cooking fish in, walked on tiptoed claws in a noiseless and modest manner, and left the room unnoticed by anyone. "Oh, don't be so horrid," Anthea was saying gently and earnestly. "We love cats, dear pussy soft things. We wouldn't hurt them for worlds, would we, Pusscat?" And Jane, because that's Jane's nickname, and Jane answered that of course they wouldn't, and still the policeman seemed unmoved by their eloquence. "Now look here," he said, "I'm a-going to see what's in that room beyond there, and—" His voice was drowned in a wild burst of mewing and squeaking, and as soon as it died down, all 4 children began to explain at once, and though the squeaking and mewing were not at their very loudest, yet there was quite enough of both to make it very hard for the policeman to understand a single word of any of the 4 wholly different explanations. This is what happens when you tell stories to cover something. Wholly different explanations now poured out to him. "Stow it," he said at last. "I'm a-going into the next room in the execution of my duty. I'm a-going to use my eyes. My ears have gone off their chumps, what with you and them cats." And he pushed Robert aside and strode through the door. "Don't say I didn't warn you," said Robert. "It's tigers, really," said Jane. "Father said so. I wouldn't go in if I were you." But the policeman was quite stony. Nothing anyone said seemed to make any difference to him. Some policemen are like this, I believe. He strode down the passage, and in another moment he would have been in the room with all the cats and all the rats, Musk. But at that very instant, a thin, sharp voice screamed from the street outside, "Murder! Murder! Stop thief!" The policeman stopped, with one regulation boot heavily poised in the air. "Eh?" he said, and again the shrieks sounded shrilly and piercingly from the dark street outside. "Come on," said Robert. "Come and look after cats while somebody's being killed outside." For Robert, who had an inside feeling that told him quite plainly who it was who was screaming. "You young rip," said the policeman. "I'll settle up with you Bimmerby," whatever that is. You can look it up, Bimeby. And he rushed out, and the children heard his boots going weightily along the pavement, and the screams also going along rather ahead of the policeman. And both the murder screams and the policeman's boots faded away in the remote distance. Then Robert smacked his knickerbocker loudly with his palm. The boys wore knickerbockers, which were like somewhere between shorts and trousers, where the pants are longer than your knee and they get fastened around just below your knee, and those are called knickerbockers. And that's the trousers he's wearing. So he slapped his knickerbocker like that, loudly with his palm, and said, "Good old Phoenix. I should know its golden voice anywhere," he said. And then everyone understood how cleverly the Phoenix had caught at what Robert had said about the real work of a policeman being to look after murderers and thieves and not after cats. And all hearts were filled with admiring affection. "But he'll come back," said Anthea mournfully, "as soon as it finds the murderer is only a bright vision of a dream and isn't one at all, really." "No, he won't," said the soft voice of the clever phoenix as he flew in. "He does not know where your house is. I heard him own as much to a fellow mercenary. Oh, what a night we are having! Lock the door and let us rid ourselves of this intolerable smell of the perfume peculiar to the muskrat and to the house of the trimmers of beards." Because musk was used as like a dressing on beards. Obviously, when you go to a barber's and get your beard dressed, trimmed beautifully and all that sort of stuff, they put musk oil on, I would think. The musk that we have now may not actually smell quite the same, because often a synthetic version will be an approximation with some fiddling to make it a bit more pleasant for modern tastes. There you go. "If you'll excuse me, I will go to bed. I am worn out," said the phoenix. It was Cyril who wrote the paper that told the carpet to take away the rats and bring milk, because there seemed to be no doubt in any breast that however Persian cats there may be, they must like milk, because in those days it was considered that that was what you gave cats, was milk. "Let's hope it won't be musk milk," said Anthea in gloom, as she pinned the paper face downwards on the carpet. That's how you give the carpet instructions, is you write out what you're wishing for very, very clearly. Not just your handwriting, but the intent that you are putting into the words. You need to word it very, very carefully, because the carpet takes it literally. Then you pin it onto the carpet with the words face down so that the carpet can see the words, of course, and then the carpet goes off and does it. "Let's hope it won't be musk milk," said Anthea in gloom as she pinned the paper face downwards on the carpet. "Is there such a thing as a musk cow?" she added anxiously as the carpet shrivelled and vanished. That's how it disappears to go and fulfill a wish. "I do hope not. Perhaps it really would have been wiser to let the carpet take the cats away. It's getting quite late and we can't keep them all night." "Oh, can't we?" was the bitter rejoinder of Robert, who had been fastening the side door. "You might have consulted me," he went on. "I'm not such an idiot as some people." "Why, whatever! Don't you see we've jolly well got to keep the cats all night? Oh, get down, you furry beasts, because we've had 3 wishes out of the old carpet now, and we can't get any more till tomorrow." The liveliness of Persian mews alone prevented the occurrence of a dismal silence. Anthea spoke first. "Never mind," she said. "Do you know, I really do think they're quietening down a bit. Perhaps they heard us say milk." "They can't understand English," said Jane, the youngest. "You forget they're Persian cats, Panther." Panther is Anthea's nickname. "Well," said Anthea rather sharply, for she was tired and anxious, "who told you milk wasn't Persian for milk? Lots of English words are just the same in French. At least I know meow is, and croquet, and fiancé. Oh, puss, do be quiet. Let's stroke them as hard as we can with both hands, and perhaps they'll stop." So everyone stroked grey fur till their hands were tired, and as soon as a cat had been stroked enough to make it stop mewing, it was pushed gently away, and another mewing mouser was approached by the hands of the strokers, and the noise was really more than half purr when the carpet suddenly appeared in its proper place. And on it, instead of rows of milk cans, or even of milk jugs, there was a cow. Not a Persian cow either, nor, most fortunately, a musk cow, if there is such a thing, but a smooth, sleek, dun-coloured Jersey cow. Dun is a soft brown, who blinked large, soft eyes at the gaslight and mooed in an amiable, if rather inquiring manner. Now, Jersey cows are cows that were bred as a specific breed on the island of Jersey in the Channel Islands, which are next to France but are a British territory. They're a piece of British land even though they're right next to France. I don't get it either. Anyway, so there's Jersey cows and there's Guernsey cows, and those are the names of the 2 big islands in the Channel Islands. So each island had its own breed of cattle, and both of those sorts of cows are smaller than a lot of modern cows. They're not miniature, but they're definitely not huge cows. Although to a person who's not used to cows, they're still rather sizable creatures. But the amount of cream that's made in their milk is a lot higher, which was one of the reasons why they became a very, very popular type of cow to have as a milking cow, because of the uses that people made of cream, like butter. And I think cream is a reasonable part. The cream portion of milk is a contributing factor to cheese. I don't think you make quite such luscious cheese of the normal hard cheese variety if you don't have any milk, cream in it. Butter, ice cream, cream, clotted cream, which is like cream, but it's actually kind of extra thick and dollopy that you put on things. And it's also used in making different sauces for different dishes. Back in the day when people did a lot more fancy cooking. Anyway, we'll carry on reading. So those are Jersey cows, and they're quite mild-tempered, relatively speaking, and quite sweet-looking, yes, in their own way, as long as you don't mind cows in general. Right. Anthea had always been afraid of cows, but now she tried to be brave. Anyway, it can't run after me, she said to herself. There isn't room for it even to begin to run. The cow was perfectly placid. She behaved like a strayed duchess, till someone brought a saucer of the milk, and someone else tried to milk the cow into it. Milking is very difficult. Sorry, I've just realised that there are probably pictures and I should find out what they are. The phoenix and the carpet. I'll just let that load. Milking is very difficult. You may think it is easy, but it is not. All the children were by this time strung up to a pitch of heroism that would have been impossible to them in their ordinary condition. Robert and Cyril held the cow by the horns, and Jane, when she was quite sure that their end of the cow was quite secure, consented to stand by, ready to hold the cow by the tail should the occasion arise. Anthea, holding the saucer, now advanced towards the cow. She remembered to have heard that cows, when milked by strangers, are susceptible to the soothing influence of the human voice. So, clutching her saucer very tight, she sought for words to whose soothing influence the cow might be susceptible, and her memory, troubled by the events of the night, which seemed to go on and on and on forever and ever, refused to help her with any form of words suitable to address a Jersey cow in. Oh dear. Sorry, I'm just trying to scroll through to find the next part of the book. We've had the cats. Here we go. That's 25. What have we got here? Picture 25. Okay. We've had this picture, which is with the cats. Oh no, that one isn't. That one's actually. That's the cats and the cow. That's the next picture. So there you go. There's Cyril, there's Robert, there's Anthea, and there's Jane. The boys are holding the cow's head. These are the Persian cats all milling around. They can probably smell the milk. Anyway, so there you go. I shall carry on, although I will find the next picture ready for it to go. I hope the cow doesn't get out into another part of the house. I don't know if that's possible. Maybe that's part of the story that comes next. We'll find out, won't we? So Anthea couldn't think of any words suitable to address a cow. Poor puss then. Lie down then, good dog, lie down, was all that she could think of to say, and she said it. And nobody laughed. The situation, full of grey, mewing cats, was too serious for that. Then Anthea, with a beating heart, tried to milk the cow. Next moment the cow had knocked the saucer out of her hand and trampled on it with one foot, while with the other three she had walked on a foot each of Robert, Cyril, and Jane. Oh, that would hurt. That would really hurt, because they're not small animals, really, as I said before, and they have hooves. Jane burst into tears. Oh, how much too horrid everything is, she cried. Come away, let's go to bed and leave the horrid cats with the hateful cow. Perhaps somebody will eat somebody else and serve them right. They did not go to bed, but they had a shivering council in the drawing-room, which smelt of soot. And indeed a heap of this lay in the fender. There had been no fire in the room since Mother went away, and all the chairs and tables were in the wrong places, so Mother has been away for a number of days now. And the chrysanthemums were dead, and the water in the pot nearly dried up. Anthea wrapped the embroidered woolly sofa blanket round Jane and herself, while Robert and Cyril had a struggle, silent and brief, but fierce, for the larger share of the fur hearthrug. "It is most truly awful," said Anthea, "and I'm so tired. Let's let the cats loose." "And the cow, perhaps," said Cyril. "The police would find us at once. That cow would stand in the gate and moo, to come in, and so would the cats. No, I see quite well what we've to do. We must put them in baskets and leave them on people's doorsteps, like orphan foundlings." "We've got 3 baskets, counting Mother's work one," said Jane, brightening. "And nearly 200 cats," said Anthea, "besides the cow, and it would have to be a different-sized basket for her. And then I don't know how you'd carry it, and you'd never find a doorstep big enough to put it on, except the church one. And—" "Oh, well," said Cyril, "if you simply make difficulties—" "I'm with you," said Robert. "Don't fuss about the cow, Panther. It's simply got to stay the night. And I'm sure I've read that the cow is a remunerating creature, and that means it will sit still and think for hours." "Remunerating," he said, which means getting money back, being remunerated. He means ruminating, which means that they chew their cud. So they eat grass and then they appear to swallow it, and there's a particular part of their digestive system that's designed for receiving grass that they have bitten off, and then later on, when they're not walking around finding new grass, they bring that back to their mouth and chew it some more, which then goes down their throat to their proper stomach to be digested. So it's ruminating. And it's where we get the idea of ruminating over something, thinking it over, chewing it over again and again. And it comes from the fact that cows and other animals are ruminants, because they bite something off, chew it a little bit, swallow it partially, and then they chew it again before they actually digest it properly. So it's to chew it over again. So that's what he meant. Remunerating creature. And that means it will sit still and think for hours. The carpet can take it away in the morning. And as for the baskets, we'll do them up in dusters or pillowcases or bath towels. Come on, Squirrel. That's Cyril. You girls can be out of it if you like. His tone was full of contempt. But Jane and Anthea were too tired and desperate to care. Even being out of it, which at other times they could not have borne, now seemed quite a comfort. They snuggled down in the sofa blanket, and Cyril threw the fur hearthrug over them. He said, "That's all women are fit for, to keep safe and warm while the men do the work and run dangers and risks and things." "I'm not," said Anthea. "You know I'm not." But Cyril was gone, kind of itching for Anthea to have to save the day and Cyril to be the one needing to be saved. It was warm under the blanket and the hearthrug, and Jane snuggled up close to her sister, and Anthea cuddled Jane closely and kindly, and in a sort of dream they heard the rise of a wave of mewing as Robert opened the door of the nursery. They heard the booted search for baskets in the back kitchen. They heard the side door open and close, and they knew that each brother had gone out with at least one cat. Anthea's last thought was that it would take at least all night to get rid of 199 cats by twos. There would be 99 journeys of 2 cats each and 1 cat over. "I almost think we might keep the 1 cat over," said Anthea. "I don't seem to care for cats just now, but I dare say I shall again some day." It was Jane who awoke with a start to find Anthea still asleep, as in the act of awakening, she kicked her sister. She wondered idly why they should have gone to bed in their boots, but the next moment she remembered where they were. Excuse me, I'm hungry. I forgot to tell you. Get yourself something to drink and something to snack on and somewhere comfortable to sit, unless you have to work, in which case you probably aren't allowed to just comfortably sit. I have no trouble with you just lurking snacking away, listening while you're doing other things. Sorry. I thought it was a smallish bite. Next moment she remembered where they were. There was a sound of muffled, shuffled feet on the stairs. Like the heroine of the classic poem, Jane thought it was the boys. And as she felt quite wide awake and not nearly so tired as before, she crept gently from Anthea's side and followed the footsteps. They went down into the basement. The cats, who seemed to have fallen into the sleep of exhaustion, awoke at the sound of the approaching footsteps, because the children's playroom, the nursery, is in the basement. The cats awoke at the sound of the approaching footsteps and mewed piteously. Jane was at the foot of the stairs before she saw it was not her brothers whose coming had roused her and the cats, but a burglar. She knew he was a burglar at once because he wore a fur cap and a red and black charity check comforter, and he had no business where he was. A charity check comforter. A comforter is a type of scarf that you wear to keep warm, and I'm going to guess that there's a particular charity that makes them and gives them away, and it has a particular colour combination that it weaves them as to be this particular check pattern, and so therefore it's recognisable as having been one of the giveaway ones. Anyway, if you had stood in Jane's shoes... he had no business where he was. If you had been stood in Jane's shoes, you would no doubt have run away in them, appealing to the police and the neighbours with horrid screams. But Jane knew better. She had read a great many nice stories about burglars, as well as some affecting pieces of poetry, and she knew that no burglar will ever hurt a little girl if he meets her when burgling. Indeed, in all the cases Jane had read of, his burglarishness was almost at once forgotten in the interest he felt in the little girl's artless prattle, mindless chatter. So if Jane hesitated for a moment before addressing the burglar, it was only because she could not at once think of any remark sufficiently prattling and artless to make a beginning with. In the stories and the affecting poetry, the child could never speak plainly, though it always looked old enough to in the pictures. We had a child like that in one of, I think it was in The Little Princess, one of the children at the boarding school, the girls' school, tended to use artless prattle, and it was a bit annoying. Anyway. The child always looked old enough to speak properly in the pictures, and Jane could not make up her mind to lisp and talk baby, even to a burglar. And while she hesitated, he softly opened the nursery door and went in. Jane followed just in time to see him sit down flat on the floor, scattering cats as a stone thrown into a pool splashes water. She closed the door softly and stood there, still wondering whether she could bring herself to say, "What's oo doing here, Mr. Wobber?" and whether any other kind of talk would do. Then she heard the burglar draw a long breath, and he spoke. "It's a judgment," he said, "so help me Bob if it ain't. Oh, here's a thing to 'appen to a chap. Makes it come home to you, don't it, neither? Cats and cats and cats. There couldn't be all them cats, let alone the cow. If she ain't the moral of the old man's Daisy, she's a dream out of where I was a lad. I don't mind her so much. Here, Daisy. Daisy?" The cow turned and looked at him. "She's all right," he went on. "Some sort of company too, though them above knows how she got into this downstairs parlour. But them cats, I'll take 'em away, I'll chuck the whole show, I'll take 'em away." "Burglar," said Jane, close behind him, and he started convulsively and turned on her a blank face whose pale lips trembled. "I can't take those cats away," she said. "Lor' lummy," explained the man, "if here ain't another on 'em. For are you real, miss, or something I'll wake up from presently?" So he really thinks he's having a nightmare with all these cats. Understandably, if you think about it. "I'm quite real," said Jane, relieved to find that a lisp was not needed to make the burglar understand her. "And so," she added, are the cats real? Then send for the police, and I'll go quiet. If you ain't no realer than them cats, I'm done spunchuck. Whatever that is. Out of time. Send for the police, I'll go quiet. One thing, there'd be not room for half them cats in no cell as I see. He ran his fingers through his hair, which was short, and his eyes wandered wildly round the room full of cats. Burglar, said Jane kindly and softly, if you didn't like cats, what did you come here for? Send for the police, was the unfortunate criminal one's only reply. I'd rather you would. Honest, I'd rather. I daren't, said Jane, and besides, I've no one to send. I hate the police. I wish he'd never been born. You've a feeling art, miss, said the burglar, but them cats is really a little bit too thick. Look here, said Jane, I won't call the police, and I'm quite a real little girl, though I talk older than the kind you've met before when you've been doing your burglings. And they are real cats, and they want real milk, and didn't you say the cow was like somebody's Daisy that you used to know? Wish I may die if she ain't the very spit of her, replied the man. Well then, said Jane, and a thrill of joyful pride ran through her. Perhaps you know how to milk cows. Perhaps I does, was the burglar's cautious rejoinder. Then, said Jane, if you will only milk ours, you don't know how we shall always love you. The burglar replied that loving was all very well. If those cats only had a good, long, wet, thirsty drink of milk, Jane went on with eager persuasion, they'd lie down and go to sleep as likely as not, and then the police won't come back. But if they go on mewing like this, he will, and then I don't know what'll become of us, or you either. This argument seemed to decide the criminal. Jane fetched the wash bowl from the sink, and he spat on his hands and prepared to milk the cow. At this instant, boots were heard on the stairs. It's all up, said the man desperately. This here's a plant. Here's the police. He made as if to open the window and leap from it. It's all right, I tell you, whispered Jane in anguish. I'll say you're a friend of mine, or the good clergyman called in, or my uncle, or anything. Only do milk the cow. Oh, don't go. Oh, thank goodness. It's only the boys. It was, and their entrance had awakened Anthea, who, with her brothers, now crowded through the doorway. The man looked about him like a rat looks round a trap. This is a friend of mine, said Jane. He's just called in, and he's going to milk the cow for us. Isn't it good and kind of him? She winked at the others, and though they did not understand, they played up loyally. How do, said Cyril, very glad to meet you. Don't let us interrupt the milking. I shall have eaten half in the morning and no bloomin' error, remarked the burglar, but he began to milk the cow. I think he's saying he's going to have a big hangover tomorrow morning, because to be imagining all this, he has to be incredibly drunk. He began to milk the cow. Robert was winked at to stay and see that he did not leave off milking or try to escape, and the others went to get things to put the milk in, for it was now spurting and foaming in the wash bowl, and the cats had ceased from mewing and were crowding round the cow, with expressions of hope and anticipation on their whiskered faces. We can't get rid of any more cats, said Cyril, as he and his sisters piled a tray high with saucers and soup plates and platters and pie dishes. The police nearly got us as it was. Not the same one, a much stronger sort. He thought it really was a foundling orphan we'd got. If it hadn't been for me throwing the 2 bags of cat, slapping his eye and hauling Robert over a railing and lying like mice under a laurel bush. Well, it's jolly lucky I'm a good shot, that's all. He pranced off when he'd got the cat bags off his face. Thought we'd bolted. And here we are. The gentle samishness of the milk swishing into the hand bowl seemed to have soothed the burglar very much. He went on milking in a sort of happy dream while the children got a cap and ladled the warm milk out into the pie dishes and plates and platters and saucers, and set them down to the music of Persian purrs and lappings. Just going to check the pictures, see what the status is here. There you go. I think this is one that we're meant to be having this picture. There he is. He went on milking in a sort of happy dream. There you go. There's the cow. Doesn't she look lovely? Ladled the warm milk out into the pie dishes and plates and platters and saucers and set them down to the music of Persian purrs and lappings. It makes me think of old times, said the burglar, smearing his ragged coat cuff across his eyes, about the apples in the orchards at home, and the rats at the threshing time, and the rabbits and the ferrets, and how pretty it was seeing the pigs killed. Finding him in this softened mood, Jane said, I wish you'd tell us how you came to choose our house for your burglaring tonight. I am awfully glad you did. You have been so kind. I don't know what we should have done without you, she added hastily. We all love you ever so. Do tell us. The others added their affectionate entreaties, and so at last the burglar said, Well, it's my first job, and I didn't expect it to be made so welcome, and that's the truth, young ladies and gents. I don't know but what it won't be my last, for this here cow, she reminds me of my father, and I know how he'd have hided me if I laid hands on a halfpenny as wasn't my own, giving me a whacking, hiding, how he'd have hided me. Oh, I'm sure he would, Jane agreed kindly. But what made you come here? Well, miss, said the burglar, you know best how you come by them cats and why you don't like the police, so I'll give myself away free and trust to your noble arts. You'd best bail out a bit, the pan's getting fullish. I was a-selling oranges off my barrow, for I ain't a burglar by trade, though you have used the name so free, and there was a lady brought 3 ha'porth off me. That's 3 halfpennies worth. That's 1.5p. And while she was a-picking out of them, very careful indeed, and I'm always glad with them when them sort gets a few overripe ones, there was 2 other ladies talking over the fence, and one on 'em said to the others on 'em, just like this, I've told both girls to come and they can doss in with Maria and Jane, 'cause their boss and his missus is miles away and the kids too, so they can just lock up the house and leave the gas a-burning so no one won't know and get back bright and early by 11 o'clock. And we'll make a night of it, Mrs. Prosser, so we will. I'm just a-going to run out to pop the letter in the post. And then the lady what had chosen the 3 ha'porths so carefully, she said, Lord, Mrs. Wigson, I wonder at you and your hands all over suds. This good gentleman'll slip it into the post for you, I'll be bound, seeing I'm a customer of his. And so they gave me the letter, and of course I read the direction what was written on it afore I shoved it in the post. And then when I'd sold my barrowful, I was a-going home with the chink in my pocket, and I'm blowed if some bloomin' thieving beggar didn't nick the lot, while I was just a-wetting my whistle for calling of oranges as dry work. Calling oranges, selling them, you call out that you've got oranges, and so people come and buy them off you. Yeah, it is dry work. Nicked the bloomin' lot he did, and me with no farden to take home to my brother and his missus. How awful, said Anthea, with much sympathy. Awful indeed, miss, I believe ya, the burglar rejoined with deep feeling. You don't know her temper when she's roused, and I'm sure I hope you never may, neither, and I'd had all my oranges off 'em. So it came back to me what was wrote on the envelope, and I says to myself, why not, seeing as I've been done myself, and if they keeps 2 slavies there must be some pickings. Servants. So here I am, but them cats, they brought me back to the ways of honestness, never, no more. Look here, said Cyril, these cats are very valuable, very indeed, and we will give them all to you, if only you will take them away. I see they're a breedy lot, replied the burglar, but I don't want no bother with the coppers. Did you come by 'em honest now, straight? They're all our very own, said Anthea. We wanted them, but the consignment, said Cyril, was larger than we wanted, and they're an awful bother. If you'd got your barrow and some sacks or baskets, your brother's missus would be awfully pleased. My father says Persian cats are worth pounds each. Well, said the burglar, and he was certainly moved by her remarks, I see you're in a hole, and I don't mind lending a helping hand. I don't ask how you come by them, but I got a pal. He's a mark on cats. I'll fetch him along, and if he thinks they'd fetch anything above their skins, I don't mind doing you a business. Yeah, 'cause cat skins were used as cheap fur at one stage. You wouldn't go away and never come back, said Jane, because I don't think I could bear that. The burglar, quite touched by her emotion, swore sentimentally that, alive or dead, he would come back. Then he went, and Cyril and Robert sent the girls to bed and sat up to wait for his return. It soon seemed absurd to await him in a state of wakefulness, but his stealthy tap on the window awoke them readily enough, for he did return with the pail and the barrow and the sacks. The pail approved of the cats, now dormant in Persian repletion, and they were bundled into the sacks and taken away on the barrow, mewing indeed, but with mews too sleepy to attract attention. I'm a fence, that's what I am, said the burglar gloomily. I never thought I'd come down to this, and all 'cause of my kind heart. Cyril knew that a fence is a receiver of stolen goods, and he replied briskly, I give you my sacred, the cats aren't stolen. What do you make the time? I ain't got the time on me, said the pal, but it was just about chucking out time as I come by the Bull and Gate. I shouldn't wonder if it was nigh upon 1 now. When the cats had been removed and the boys and the burglar had parted with warm expressions of friendship, there remained only the cow. She must stay all night, said Robert. Cook'll have a fit when she sees her. All night, said Cyril. Why, it's tomorrow morning if it's 1. We can have another wish. So the carpet was urged in a hastily written note to remove the cow to wherever she belonged and to return to its proper place on the nursery floor. But the cow could not be got to move onto the carpet. So Robert got the clothesline out of the back kitchen and tied one end very firmly to the cow's horns and the other end to a bunched-up corner of the carpet, and said, Fire away! And the carpet and cow vanished together. And the boys went to bed, tired out, and only too thankful that the evening was at last over. Next morning the carpet lay calmly in its place, but one corner was very badly torn. It was the corner the cow had been tied to. There you go. And that's the end of that chapter. And wonderfully, it was actually shorter than most of the other chapters we've had in this book, which means that I can finish without missing any of it and be ready in time for my meeting. And I'm just going to give you a bit of a taste of what's to come. Chapter 9 is The Burglar's Bride. I wonder if we're going to see that same burglar again. I wonder if he's going to become a friend of theirs, because he didn't become a thief. He didn't end up doing something dishonest. He actually ended up helping them. And because the cats had been brought from Persia and gifted to the children by the carpet, they were not stolen. So nobody is going to report them missing and the burglar getting into trouble for it. There you go. Worked out well all round, didn't it? Anyway, so hang on. I just need to check something over on my other monitor on the other computer, the one that I will eventually be using properly. And then I shall say goodbye, I suppose. So I hope you have some wonderful things planned ahead of you for the rest of the week, because today is Monday, although for some of you it may actually still be Sunday evening. Sunday sometime? Anyway, whatever, doesn't really matter. I hope you've got a lovely week ahead of you. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Yes, it would be lovely. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. It's lovely having you here with me and enjoying the stories. How far through this book are we? That's a good question. Not that anyone specifically asked at this time. You're all such good lurkers. You are. not being disruptive or anything like that. I do appreciate that. So it looks like we're about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through the book. I'll have a look at the chapter list. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 more chapters to go. Okay, 4 out of a total of 12. That means, yes, we have 1/3 of the book to go. How's that? Hang on, get it back to go back to where it's meant to go. So it's ready for me next time at the right chapter. Anyway, so thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And we look forward to seeing you next time. And don't forget, if you've got other stories that you want to listen, if you enjoy listening to stories and you want to listen to some stories apart from this one that we're currently reading at the moment, then please go to my YouTube channel and look up my playlists. And on my playlists, you will find, seeing if I can get the exclamation mark, because I'm going to give you the link. You will find that each playlist is one book, except for one, which is the Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. That's both books in the playlist. And the Millie Molly Mandy playlist is all of the Millie Molly Mandy stories from all of the Millie Molly Mandy books, all in one playlist. But those stories are very, very short. They're between 6 and 12 minutes long, I think. It was when I first started reading online. So they go through really, really quickly, but they're aimed for a slightly younger audience again. Preschoolers, just preschool and first year of primary school age group. Anyway, so if you want more stories, go to YouTube and have a listen to them. There you go. I think that my ability to read has possibly improved over time. I know that once I got started with using this sort of a setup instead of using my phone, that the lighting came and went in terms of how good it was, but it's eventually improved to the point where I think it's reasonably stable now. We seem to know what we're doing, but we're going to have a big change around when I finally go onto my other computer, the one that replaces this one, because this one is slowly and quietly dying. Hopefully not before I do the changeover. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll see you next time, which, if you're watching this live, will be 2 days from now. So for me, I'm reading on a Monday at the moment, and I started at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in New Zealand. And so I will be reading on Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in New Zealand time. And you can join in and listen live. And if you happen to be actually watching this after the fact, over on YouTube, you're most welcome to follow the link, which is on my profile on YouTube, to Twitch, and Twitch will show you when I'm next going to be live, and it will show you for your time zone if you are logged in. It's free anyway. It's a bit like YouTube. There's some aspects of it that if you choose to, you can pay for, but you don't need to pay for using Twitch. And then you can listen. And if you register and follow me, but like subscribing on YouTube, the system will notify you when I go live, and then you can actually chat with me in the chat box when I'm reading live. You can look for words up for me, type what the definitions are into the chat box, and then I will read them out so everybody knows, because there are words that I'm not quite sure of sometimes, and also other bits of information and things like that. It's lots of fun. Anyway, we'll see you next time. Bye. Happy reading.